What if I told you one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL secured one of the biggest contracts in the history of the sport? After just one decent season, the Giants decided to tie their future and millions of dollars to a quarterback who never even made the Pro Bowl. Why? Well, I've watched every snap of Daniel Jones' career and know exactly how we got to this point. You see, it all started in high school. Daniel Jones was basically unknown as a high school senior. At the time, 247 Sports, one of the top recruiting sites, had him ranked as the 2020th best player in the class of 2015. And oh yeah, there's this guy on Twitter who played against him in high school, and after every bad game Jones has in the NFL, he reminds us he wasn't even that good in high school. Daniel received one college offer from Princeton, but opted to go the walk-on route at Duke. His second year on campus, the Blue Devils starting QB went down with a season-ending injury during the preseason, so Jones was thrust into the starting role. In his first collegiate season, Daniel completed 62% of his passes for 2,800 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. But the following season, his numbers declined. In 2017, he completed just 56% of his passes for 2,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. His junior year, which ended up being his final collegiate season, Jones threw a career-best 22 touchdowns, but had just 2,600 passing yards in 11 games played. Just as a comparison, the number 1 overall pick from Jones' draft, Kyler Murray, had 4,300 passing yards, 42 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions that year. So after a somewhat mid-junior season, for lack of a better term, Jones declared for the 2019 NFL Draft. During the pre-draft process, scouts thought he had good mechanics and above-average athleticism. But the thing they really liked about him wasn't even him. You see, his head coach at Duke, David Cutcliffe, was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee when Peyton Manning played there, and was Eli Manning's head coach at Ole Miss. This gave Cutcliffe a reputation as sort of a QB whisperer, so some felt he might have instilled some greatness in Jones. Gil Brandt, the Hall of Fame football executive, said, quote, "I love Dan Jones. I have to say this carefully. When you watch him and go back 20 years and watch Peyton Manning, you are watching the same guy. He's athletic. He doesn't have a rocket for an arm, but neither did Peyton. Very smart." Leading up to the draft, Jones was expected to be a mid-first, early second-round pick. But when draft day arrived, the Giants did something that shocked the football world. They selected Daniel Jones with the 6th overall pick. Way higher than anyone expected him to go. Also, if you're new here, I'm a Giants fan, so let's roll my live reaction to the pick.
They gotta take Josh Allen. They have to take Josh Allen. They need to take Josh Allen. No! No! Oh my god. What just happened?
What made this reach of a pick even crazier is the fact that New York also held the 17th overall selection, which was around where experts actually believed he should be drafted. So why did the Giants draft him so high? Well, part of it definitely had to do with the Eli Manning connection. Like I mentioned earlier, Manning, the Giants' 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, had the same college coach as Jones. And oh yeah, people also joke New York drafted him because he looked and acted just like Eli. Like, hey, if this quarterback just brought you 2 Super Bowls and he's getting old, why not draft one that looks and dresses and talks like him? Because, you know, he probably plays like him too then, right? Right? Jones started his rookie season as Manning's backup, but after the team lost the first 2 games of the year, he was named the Giants' Week 3 starter. In his first NFL start, Daniel found himself down 18 points at halftime. However, in the second half, he caught on fire. He threw 2 touchdown passes, and with just over a minute left in the game, he ran into the end zone to give the Giants a 1-point lead. In the final seconds of the game, the Buccaneers kicker missed the 34-yard game-winning field goal, which secured Jones's iconic first NFL win. Daniel finished that game with 336 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing scores. He was named not just the NFC Rookie of the Week for this performance, but also the NFC Player of the Week. After just 1 game, it seemed like the Giants had found their future franchise quarterback. I'll tell you, as a Giants fan, I was actually so excited. The very next game, New York dominated Washington 24-3, which brought their record back up to 500. However, things then took a turn. The Giants went went on to lose their next 8 games with Jones under center. Not all these losses were the rookie's fault though. He had some really good performances during this stretch and some really bad ones. In week 6 versus the Patriots, he completed only 48% of his passes for 161 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. The very next week versus the Cardinals, he fumbled 3 times. But he bounced back the following game versus the Lions, throwing for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. 2 weeks later versus the Jets, he yet again threw for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. His best performance of the season came in week 16 when he passed for over 350 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 turnovers versus Washington. Jones finished his rookie season with pretty decent numbers. He completed 61% of his passes for 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. However, there was one alarming stat: his fumbles. In the 13 games Daniel played his rookie year, he fumbled 19 times, which was the most in the NFL. 11 of those were recovered by the opposing team. The Giants finished 2019 with a 4-12 record, which resulted in head coach Pat Shurmur being fired. This actually turned out to be a huge mistake, one that possibly ruined Daniel's career, but we'll dive deeper into that in a moment. To replace him, New York hired the Patriots special teams coordinator, Joe Judge. The Giants started the 2020 season 0-5. During that stretch, Daniel threw just 2 touchdowns to 5 interceptions and had 4 fumbles. And the thing is, those interceptions weren't just average interceptions. They were the most head-scratching, what are you doing? How the heck did you make the decision to throw that ball there interceptions? In week 7 versus the Eagles, what is unfortunately probably the most iconic Daniel Jones moment happened. The quarterback broke away from defenders on a run and hit a top speed of 21.23 miles per hour, which was the fastest by an NFL QB since Lamar Jackson in 2018. Sounds great, right? Well, just when it looked like he was about to score an easy touchdown, the QB tripped over his own feet and came up short. Daniel's play regressed his second season in the league. In 2020, he threw for just 2,900 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. He didn't throw for over 300 yards in a single game, something he did multiple times as a rookie, and didn't have a game with more than 2 touchdown passes, which yet again was something he did multiple times his first year in the league. Also, another alarming trend started to appear during Jones' second pro season. After being sidelined for 2 games during his rookie season with an ankle injury, Jones missed a game in 2020 with a hamstring strain and another one with an ankle sprain. People started to wonder if the QB was injury prone, but this turned out to be just the tip of the iceberg for Jones and injuries. As his career continued, he suffered more and more complex ones, which we'll get to in a moment. Also guys, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Underdog. If you sign up with my promo code SheGotSports, you'll get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. I love playing pick'em on Underdog because of their injury rescues. You see, if a player gets injured or ejected in the first half and doesn't play in the second half, and all your other picks win, your entry will be refunded and you will get a free pick. So since Mike Evans didn't return in the second half versus the Ravens and all my other players greened, that means my entry was refunded and I get a free pick, which is Sam Darnold higher than half a yard. So make sure you sign up using that promo code SheGotSports to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and that free pick. Despite a down year in 2020, there was optimism for the young quarterback entering 2021. You see, Jones' poor play wasn't viewed as solely his fault. The Giants had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL and a pretty lackluster group of wide receivers. So during the offseason, New York signed big-name wide receiver Kenny Golladay in free agency and selected wideout Kadarius Toney in the first round of the draft. The Giants started 2021 0-3, but in week 4, Jones had one of his best performances in a very long time, throwing for over 400 yards in an overtime win versus the Saints. However, the very next week, things took a turn for the worse when Jones took a helmet-to-helmet hit and suffered a nasty concussion. He was cleared to play the following week, but in that game, he threw 0 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions. 5 games later versus the Eagles, Jones suffered a neck injury that sidelined him for the remainder of the season. The injury was pretty intense. He reportedly suffered structural damage in his neck. After another losing season in 2021, New York fired head coach Joe Judge. The GM who drafted Jones, Dave Gettleman, quote, retired, wink wink, if he didn't, quote, retire, he would have been fired. This was bad news for Daniel, as the new head coach and GM would have no ties to him and probably would want to go out and draft their own QB. New York ended up hiring Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll as their new head coach. Daboll had been given a ton of credit for the development of Josh Allen, and many hoped he would be able to turn Jones's career around. In the first game of the season, Jones threw a terrible interception in the end zone, which resulted in him getting chewed out on the sideline by his new head coach. However, with just over a minute left in the game, Jones threw a touchdown pass that ended up winning New York the game. The Giants had a chance to start 2022 3-0, but in a matchup with the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys, Jones played poorly and threw this game-ending interception on what could have been a game-tying drive. After this loss, New York went on a 4-game win streak. Daniel's numbers weren't eye-popping, but he managed the game and made the passes he needed to. His completion percentage was high, and he wasn't turning the ball over. The Giants finished the season with a 9-6-1 record. With a win over the Colts in Week 17, they clinched a playoff spot for the first time since 2016. During that game, the fans serenaded Jones with Daniel Jones chants, which was a stark contrast from the criticism he faced from fans the previous few seasons. In the wildcard round, the 6-seed Giants were headed to Minnesota to take on the 3-seed Vikings. In that one, Jones put together one of the best performances of his career. He completed 68% of his passes for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 78 rushing yards, which propelled New York to the 31-24 upset win. The divisional round didn't go as well for the QB. He completed only 55% of his passes for 135 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. Daniel's 2022 season was the best of his career thus far. He completed a career-high 67% of his passes, threw for over 3,000 yards for the first time since his rookie season, and had 15 touchdowns to a career-low 5 interceptions. The Giants front office decided this was enough to give him a massive 4-year, $160 million contract extension that committed to him as their franchise quarterback for the next few years. Heading into 2023, expectations were pretty high for the Giants. But in Jones' first game as one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, he was abysmal, throwing for 104 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and fumbling the ball twice, and a 40-0 loss at home. The following week versus the Cardinals, who were thought to be one of the worst teams in the league that year, the Giants found themselves down 21 points late in the third quarter. Somehow, the offense finally clicked in the fourth quarter, and they were able to come back and win. But a few weeks later in prime time, Jones threw one of the worst interceptions you'll see in the red zone that was returned for a pick 6. Even Eli Manning couldn't believe he actually threw that ball. In this game, Jones was sacked a lot, but it wasn't necessarily the O-line's fault. You see, Jones missed basic protection changes and let free rushers come hit him untouched. And oh yeah, we also saw the classic, most common Daniel Jones problem in this one, his terrible field vision. Look at Wan'Dale Robinson right in his line of vision, wide open, jumping up and down to let his QB know he's open, but instead of throwing it to him, Jones just threw it out of bounds. On his second interception of the game, we could see just how little he trusts his own vision. Look at him double clutching this throw and almost triple guessing himself. In week 5, Daniel suffered yet another neck injury and was sidelined for 3 games. Just like his previous neck injury, this was pretty serious. It caused weakness in his left arm. But when he returned to the field in week 9, things just got even worse. Early in the game, he fell down without contact, which resulted in an ACL tear that ended his season. In the few games Jones did play in 2023, he didn't look anything like the quarterback fans saw in 2022. His play had regressed mightily. When backups Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito played that season, they actually looked better than Daniel. The massive contract extension was already looking like a huge mistake. Before the 2024 draft, Giants GM Joe Shane tried to trade up to the 3rd overall pick so the team could draft quarterback Drake May. Ultimately, the Patriots held on to their pick, and the Giants drafted star wide receiver Malik Neighbors 6th overall, instead of drafting another quarterback, JJ McCarthy. So Jones was the team's starting quarterback entering the 2024 season. In the first game of the season, Jones played horrendous, completing just 52% of his passes for 186 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and was repeatedly booed by fans. After the game, Vikings linebacker Jonathan Greenard said, "We kind of started to feel a little bit bad for him." I mean, the opposing team saying they feel bad for you because you just played that poorly? That's just brutal. And after the game, Giants fans waited by the player exit to boo him, right in front of his face as he was walking to his car. That's just too far in my opinion, guys. Boo him all you want when he's on the field, but when he's in his street clothes just walking to his car to go home, leave him alone. Don't seek him out to boo him. That's weird behavior. Earlier in his career, Daniel Jones could throw a pretty decent deep ball, but now it seems like he might not even be able to physically throw the ball far down the field. In week 3 versus the Cowboys, deep pass after deep pass was coming up short and off target. Could this be the serious injuries he's had finally taking a toll on him? Possibly. At the time of this recording, the Giants have only had 13 pass plays gain 20 or more yards. That's the 4th least in the league. Jones has attempted 22 passes that traveled more than 22 yards in the air, but only 5 of those 22 passes ended up being completions. On Sunday Night Football versus the Bengals, the Giants' longest play on offense only went for 15 yards. And Jones threw this interception into quadruple coverage. The following week versus the Eagles, things got even worse. The Giants' longest play on offense only went for 14 yards, and Malik Neighbors was literally pointing out the open receiver to Jones while running his own route. Before that game was over, Dable ended up benching Daniel in favor of Drew Lock. After the game, when Neighbors was asked about the Eagles' defense by the media, he said, "I was open. Check the tape. I was open." And it's true. He was open. I'm recording this video at the end of October, and at this point, Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown pass at home since January 1st, 2023. Yeah, he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass at home since his Giant contract extension. Right now, he has an 80.6 passer rating, which ranks 26th in the league and is only higher than those of players like Bo Nix, Deshaun Watson, Jacoby Brissett, Bryce Young, Aiden O'Connell, and a few more. Throughout Jones's career, there has always been an excuse or a reason for his poor play. It was, the O-line stinks, he doesn't have a number 1 wide receiver, or the coaching staff is bad. However, the Giants now have the best offensive line they've had in a very long time, and their best wide receiver since Odell Beckham Jr. I agree that the coaching changes early in Jones' career were terrible. I think if they stuck with Shermer as head coach, Jones would have thrived in his second pro season. But now with Dable in his 3rd year as head coach, there really isn't an excuse. Listen, I feel bad for Jones. I really do. By all accounts, he's someone who works really hard. He's the first one in, the last one out. He wants to be great and is doing everything you need to do to be great. But the problem is, he just doesn't have the tools. You can tell watching him play, he just doesn't have confidence in himself. Even he doesn't trust his own eyes in decision making. And honestly, I don't know how you come back from that. He just seems totally shell-shocked out there. Deshaun Watson is making a ton of headlines right now. If you want to know what really happened with him and some of the stuff that isn't really talked about, check out this video up here.